On a crisp spring morning, I stepped outside to admire the meticulously maintained driveway of my home, a symbol of pride and impeccable design. As I locked the front door, I noticed HOA Karen lingering near my car, her eyes glinting with a mischievous yet determined intent. "Welcome to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you dislike Karens too." She approached with an air of audacity that defied the conventional boundaries of neighborhood decorum. In a sultry tone laced with bureaucratic authority, she remarked that my driveway was too magnificent to be confined solely to my personal use. Her words carried an unexpected allure, as if she intended to seduce me into granting her exclusive access. I was taken aback by the bizarre proposition, uncertain whether to interpret her approach as flirtation or a misguided administrative request. Before I could muster a response, she boldly declared that she desired to use my driveway for reasons that transcended ordinary parking privileges. Her insinuation suggested a private arrangement that would allow her intimate access, which she claimed would benefit the community's aesthetics. I listened in stunned silence, the surreal nature of the encounter leaving me both flattered and deeply uneasy. At that moment, my wife emerged from a house, her presence radiating both grace and a formidable sense of authority. Without hesitation, she interjected with a calm but piercing tone that commanded respect and set clear boundaries. She reminded Karen that I was a married man, and that any attempt at seduction was not only inappropriate but entirely unacceptable. Her words resonated powerfully, cutting through the tension like a clarion call for propriety and respect. Karen's confident demeanor faltered briefly as the reality of my wife's intervention became apparent. Despite her initial boldness, she struggled to recover her composure in the face of such unequivocal disapproval. I, too, maintained a composed silence, my expression reflecting both surprise and a silent agreement with my wife's stance. My wife continued, emphasizing that our home, and by extension our driveway, was a private sanctuary not subject to flirtations or favors. Her words left no room for ambiguity, underscoring that personal boundaries and marital fidelity were paramount in our household. Curious neighbors who had gathered to witness the unusual scene exchanged astonished glances and hushed whispers. The unfolding spectacle quickly became the talk of the neighborhood, as residents marveled at the audacity of Karen's proposition. Local gossip spread like wildfire, painting a vivid picture of an HOA official attempting to seduce the son of a respected family. Despite the attention, my wife's firm rebuke ensured that the focus remained on the sanctity of our personal space. Karen, now visibly embarrassed, attempted to justify her actions by claiming her intentions were purely in the interest of community enhancement. However, her argument was undermined by the undeniable fact that her advances were both unsolicited and inappropriate. I reiterated politely but firmly that any use of my driveway was solely at my discretion and not subject to personal favors. Her eyes darted between me and my wife, searching for a sign that her proposal might still be entertained. But the united front we presented left no doubt that her overture was completely unacceptable. The confrontation took on a theatrical quality, as my wife's protective stance shamed Karen in front of an increasingly attentive audience. Every word spoken during that moment underscored the importance of respecting personal boundaries in a tightly knit community. The incident was quickly captured on smartphones, and soon, images of the encounter began circulating on social media. News of the scandalous proposition spread rapidly, transforming a private dispute into a viral sensation. Local media outlets picked up the story, framing it as a dramatic clash between personal propriety and overreaching authority. Public opinion quickly rallied behind my wife's decisive intervention, praising her for upholding our marital values. Meanwhile, Karen's attempts to salvage the situation only deepened the perception of her unprofessional conduct. Her subsequent apologies were delivered with a strained tone, yet they did little to restore her credibility. The entire episode served as a stark reminder that personal space and marital commitment must be fiercely protected. In the days that followed, whispers of the encounter began to echo through community forums and neighborhood gatherings. I found myself fielding curious questions and unsolicited advice from neighbors and even distant acquaintances. The incident left me pondering the implications of such audacious behavior, wondering if it signaled a broader trend of boundary overreach in our community. With tensions simmering and the controversy only beginning to unfold, I knew that this was just the start of a prolonged dispute that would challenge the very fabric of our neighborhood's decorum. In the days following the confrontation, whispers turned into heated discussions as the incident rapidly became the talk of the neighborhood. The local media wasted no time, with TV anchors and newspaper headlines broadcasting every salacious detail of the encounter. Social media exploded with hashtags and memes, some ridiculing HOA Karen, while others lauded my wife's impeccable timing and decisive intervention. I found myself fielding calls from reporters, community leaders, and even legal experts who wanted to weigh in on the scandalous affair. The story evolved from a minor HOA dispute into a full-blown public debate about personal boundaries and the limits of communal authority. Neighbors organized impromptu meetings and forums, all abuzz with opinions on whether HOA officials should be allowed to overstep their roles. At one such forum, residents argued that the incident exposed a serious flaw in the HOA's oversight, calling for immediate reforms. Meanwhile, my wife received a flood of messages congratulating her for her unwavering stance and protecting our family's honor. Local pundits remarked that the episode was a modern parable, illustrating the clash between outdated authority and contemporary values of respect and privacy. Several influential community figures publicly endorsed our position, emphasizing that a person's home, and by extension, its driveway, was inviolable. The scandal spurred a series of televised town hall meetings where citizens debated the proper role of the HOA in managing community affairs. Critics of the HOA argued that Karen's behavior was emblematic of a broader issue of abuse of power within such organizations. Legal analysts chimed in, asserting that my property rights were unequivocally protected by law, regardless of any personal propositions. In one particularly memorable interview, I stressed that while community improvement was important, it should never come at the expense of individual dignity and marital sanctity. Local lawmakers began to take notice, with several proposing amendments to existing HOA policies to better safeguard personal freedoms. Public opinion polls revealed a significant majority supporting the idea that no one should be coerced into sharing their private property under any circumstances. The incident also ignited a series of community-wide discussions about the boundaries of acceptable behavior by those in positions of power. As the controversy deepened, I spent hours reviewing legal documents and consulting with my attorney to prepare for any potential fallout. Throughout the ordeal, I maintained a calm and measured demeanor, determined not to let the public spectacle distract from the core issue of personal rights. My wife, ever the pillar of strength, continued to defend our home and our values with quiet but resolute force. The incident soon became a case study in local seminars on property rights and the importance of clear boundaries within community governance. A number of neighborhood groups formed alliances calling for greater accountability and transparency from the HOA to prevent future overreach. The collective voice of the community began to resonate loudly at HOA meetings, with residents demanding reforms and stricter guidelines for conduct. Despite Karen's attempts to downplay her advances in subsequent statements, the damage to her reputation was irrevocable. Her public apology, when it finally came, was met with skepticism and further fueled debates about the abuse of authority. Several online opinion pieces and blog posts dissected the entire episode, praising my wife's intervention and condemning the intrusion. Throughout this period, I was invited to participate in panel discussions and interviews to share my perspective on maintaining personal integrity in the face of unwanted advances. Local universities even incorporated the incident into their curricula as an example of modern civic challenges in suburban governance. The backlash against HOA Karen and the broader institution grew, culminating in calls for a complete overhaul of the HOA's code of conduct. The once dismissed idea of reform began to take shape as community leaders pushed for revisions that would clearly define the limits of HOA authority. I observed with a sense of cautious optimism as my neighbors began to embrace a vision of a more respectful and transparent community. Amid the clamor for change, my wife and I took solace in the fact that our personal boundaries had been defended with unwavering resolve. The scandal not only underscored the importance of upholding private property rights, but also ignited a broader movement for social and legal reform. The legal community hailed the incident as a triumph of individual rights over arbitrary power, and many cited it as a landmark case in HOA governance. Over time, the fervor of the initial uproar began to subside, replaced by constructive dialogue and genuine initiatives to improve community relations. The public discourse that had erupted in the wake of the scandal gradually paved the way for meaningful changes in the HOA's policies. Local government officials, now under increased scrutiny, committed to implementing measures that would prevent future incidents of this nature. I continued to engage with community forums and meetings, advocating for balance between communal benefits and personal liberties. The incident, while deeply unsettling at first, ultimately served as a catalyst for positive change and greater awareness of personal rights. Though the memory of that fateful day lingered, it had also forged a stronger, more unified community intent on protecting its members' privacy and dignity. In essence, the controversy became a turning point, a reminder that respect and clear boundaries are the cornerstones of any well-functioning society. In the weeks following the scandal, a calm resolve began to settle over the community as the fallout from the incident transformed local perceptions of homeowner rights. The HOA board, now under intense public scrutiny, initiated a thorough internal review of policies to prevent any future overreach by its officials. Karen's conduct was formally addressed at a special board meeting, where her actions were widely condemned by both fellow officials and community members. As a result, she was placed on strict probation and her authority significantly curtailed, marking a clear rebuke of her unprofessional behavior. My wife's decisive intervention was celebrated throughout the neighborhood, her steadfast defense of our privacy becoming a rallying symbol for personal boundaries. Local media outlets heralded the outcome as a landmark victory for individual rights over arbitrary communal dictates. Opinion pieces in prominent newspapers praised the stand we took, arguing that our experience underscored the necessity of clear boundaries in community living. Inspired by the incident, several community groups emerged with the goal of monitoring HOA practices and advocating for homeowners' freedoms. The viral nature of the story spurred nationwide discussion, with legal experts citing the case as an important precedent for property rights advocacy. I was invited to participate in televised panel discussions where I reiterated that personal property, including one's driveway, is a sacred trust not subject to exploitation. My attorney, whose expert handling of the situation had been widely acclaimed, became a sought-after consultant on cases involving homeowner disputes. The incident prompted the local government to reconsider existing regulations, leading to the drafting of revised guidelines that more clearly define the limits of HOA authority. At subsequent town hall meetings, community members expressed their support for these new measures, celebrating the protection of their individual rights. The reform policies ensured that no HOA official could ever again impose personal favors or inappropriate conditions on homeowners. Our home, once the stage for an unseemly confrontation, now stood as a beacon of resilience and the triumph of marital unity over intrusion. The unwavering solidarity between my wife and me sent a strong message to all that our personal life was not for public negotiation or exploitation. Neighbors who had initially whispered in disbelief now openly expressed admiration for our principled stand and the resulting reforms. The incident quickly faded from scandal to legend, becoming a cautionary tale recounted in community forums and local gatherings. Every time I passed by my pristine driveway, I was reminded of the hard-won victory that had secured its sanctity. The transformation in the HOA's approach, driven by public demand for accountability, signaled a new era of respect for personal boundaries. Public forums and community debates began to emphasize the importance of safeguarding private spaces, inspired by our experience. The incident not only redefined local governance, but also fostered a deeper sense of mutual respect among neighbors. Our story was featured in several local documentaries that explored the balance between communal interests and individual rights. Academic discussions and case studies emerged, highlighting the legal and social implications of our confrontation with HOA Karen. The ripple effect of our stand led to similar advocacy movements in neighboring communities, all clamoring for the protection of personal freedoms. Lawmakers, influenced by the public outcry, considered drafting legislation that would offer even greater protection to property owners. I continued to enjoy the peaceful solitude of my home, confident in the knowledge that our privacy was now strongly defended by both law and community sentiment. The initial shock of the encounter had given way to a proud narrative of victory, one that underscored the power of unity and principled resistance. My wife and I, now more inseparable than ever, took solace in the support that had rallied around us during those turbulent days. The incident had become a turning point for the entire neighborhood, catalyzing widespread reforms and renewed emphasis on individual rights. Public celebrations and community events were organized to honor the newfound commitment to fairness and respect in our shared living environment. The lessons learned from that day continued to resonate, inspiring residents to remain vigilant in protecting their personal spaces. I found comfort in knowing that our ordeal had not only defended our property, but also strengthened the bonds within our community. The legacy of our stand was immortalized in local lore, a symbol of resistance against the abuse of power and a testament to marital loyalty. Every subsequent policy meeting and community vote bore the imprint of that pivotal day, ensuring that the rights of homeowners were upheld. The profound impact of our experience reverberated across the region, prompting other communities to re-examine their own governance practices. In time, the scandalous episode transformed into a celebrated milestone, remembered for the courage and integrity it inspired. Ultimately, the resolution of the conflict restored harmony and set a lasting precedent that personal dignity and marital fidelity are inviolable, ensuring that our home and its driveway remained a sanctuary free from unwarranted advances.